to Call 7 topic on the use of big data for improving clinical outcomes in heart failure. My name's Catherine Brett, and I'm going to start off today by giving you a brief introduction into how to use GoToWebinar. Then my colleague Magda Gunn, who's one of the scientific officers here at IMI, will give a brief introduction, including some advice on how to put together a strong proposal. After that, Gunnar Robert of Bayer and Maureen Cronin of Vifor will give a presentation of the topic, and at the end of the webinar there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. So, how to use GoToWebinar. At the top right-hand corner of your screen, you should be able to see the webinar panel. You can expand and minimize it, you can make it go full screen, and you can attract our attention by raising and lowering your hand. If you want to listen over your computer's microphone and speakers, just select mic and speakers in your audio panel and follow the instructions you can see on the screen. If you have trouble hearing us, we would suggest that you do a sound check, or else you can switch to using the telephone. Similarly, if you want to use the telephone, just select telephone in your audio panel and dial the numbers given. If you want to get a number for another country, because I know that when it comes up it usually gives an American number, just click on additional numbers to get a list. The most important one for most of you probably is how to ask questions. The simplest way is to ask your question in writing. Just type it into the question panel and click on send. If you want to ask a question over the phone, you can do that by clicking on the raise hand icon. You can send in questions at any time during the webinar, but we will save them all until the end. So before we start, just to remind you, this webinar is being recorded and we'll be publishing it on the IMI website and the IMI YouTube channel. We will also publish the slides so that you have those, and we'll be circulating a participant list. So on that note, I will hand over to my colleague Magda, who's going to give you a brief introduction.
Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar. Today we will cover all aspects of the call topic to give you a little bit more background on what is the idea between the project to be launched from this call. We will talk about objectives of the project, why is public-private collaboration needed for this particular topic, what will be the proposed or suggested structure of the project, expected contribution from the applicants, also what will be the FPA partners potentially contributing, and the key deliverables that the project is expected to provide. We will not cover rules and procedures. We have a separate webinar dedicated to this that will take place on the 20th of January at 3 p.m. The presentation will be recorded and also available online if you cannot attend it. Next, I would like to cover very briefly some tips on how to submit the proposal. Of course, some of them might seem obvious, but sometimes it is important to review some of the key things. So, of course, read all the relevant materials, not only the call topic, but there's also other materials available on our website that can help you with preparation of the proposal. It is very important to understand IMI2 rules and of course to respect them, and if you have any questions you can always contact IMI office if you have any doubt. It is important to think about your proposal in the way of how the reviewers will be looking at it, and whether or not you provided all the information or the information that the reviewer will need to assess your proposal. Start working early, that's very important, to find the right partners and put the proposal together. And also make sure that you finalize and submit your proposal. Our system has this peculiarity that you have to actually click 2 different buttons to ensure that your proposal is submitted. More tips you can find on our website as well, so please feel free to peruse the website for that. Some common mistakes we have seen in the past, of course, it could be related to admissibility or eligibility criteria not met. So some of those are missing the deadlines, a proposal is out of scope, you don't respect the proposal template, or the most important and the most serious one is if you do not have minimum number of legal entities. To increase your chances of success, things like redundancy between partners is quite important to avoid. Make sure you address all the objectives listed in the call topic. Make sure that the impact of your proposal is well described and it's relevant and strong. And also make sure that you stay within the accepted budget. We've seen before proposals which had budget 3 times as much as is actually available, and of course that makes the feasibility limited of such proposals. In terms of finding potential partners for your project, of course, explore your networks, your existing networks. Try to reach out to people who are experts in the field if you are not yourself. You can use IMI Partner Search tool to register and to advertise which topic you are interested to join. But also your local IMI contact points or health national contact points could be useful to try to find relevant partners. Also, IMI is on social media, so you can advertise there. Other than that, I think that is all from me. Just would like to emphasize that if you have any questions related to the topic itself or rules or any practicalities, feel free to contact us. There is an email address to our info desk, and your email will be forwarded to the relevant person who will be able to answer your question. Thank you, and with this, I can hand it over to the team from the topic.
Thank you, Magda. Gunnar, it's over to you.
Thank you. Well, the title of this topic is Increased Access and Use of High-Quality Data to Improve Clinical Outcomes in Heart Failure, Atrial Fibrillation, and Acute Coronary Syndrome patients. This is a 5-year project, and an estimated budget is slightly less than 20 million euro. I will present the first half of the presentation, and Maureen Cronin will present the second half. I think what you see on this slide is basically what Magda has already told you. I can add to the last bullet on this slide that this proposal was developed in collaboration between 5 FPA partners, and that was Bayer, V4 Pharma, Novartis, Servier, and SomaLogic. SomaLogic is a company from the US within the biomarker business based on proteins. On the next slide, sorry.
One thing for the presentation today, we're going to be very brief, and we have already assumed that you have read the text. So we will not be explaining all of the abbreviations and many of the jargon. So if you need to ask questions, you can at the end, but our assumption is you've already had a chance at least to look at, if not read, the entire presentation text, which is on the IMI page.
Good, thank you. Okay, so why is it needed a public-private collaboration to study this? Well, it is well known that the cardiovascular diseases is a major public health concern, and it is a leading cause of death in Europe. And it is estimated that by 2030, the annual number of deaths will increase 24 million patients. This is a lot. And during the last time, several improvements have been achieved in terms of management, but are still challenging. So we wanted to have a broad approach, including several partners working together, and this hopefully could lead to improvements in these patients. So the private and the public organizations, as well as patients, should be at the table to define what is needed to be done. And the private companies have clinical trial data, and public partners have also available public sources as well as ad hoc studies with very relevant data, and we wanted to use that. The public side, in particular, makes sure that the ethical and legal issues are handled in a good way. And finally, input from patients is absolutely essential in this project. So going to the next slide, this IMI is a collaborative rather than a competitive effort, and the IMI allows private companies to collaborate with other partners like academia, payers, regulatories, etc., to find ways to improve the cardiovascular patient outcomes. On the next slide, we are going through the objectives of the full project. And the main goal of this initiative is to have better decision-making tools, the overall objective. And we have defined three important objectives to meet that goal. The first is defining patient outcomes. Which outcomes shall we focus on? And this is individual. It is different for the three cardiovascular diseases, and we also need to understand how to make operational definitions of these based on databases or in clinical trials that may be different. We also need consensus on how to form these outcomes with together with different stakeholders. This is not the first project focusing on this. There are other initiatives ongoing, such as the International Consortium for Health Outcomes Measurement. They are doing a similar work, and we should build upon that in our effort. The next bullet is about access and analysis of data from publicly available sources. All sources have its own limitations. No one is perfect, as we all know. And publicly available sources, for example, have sometimes not sufficient data and are maybe not granular enough. Often lacks information on important risk factors such as lifestyle information. The third bullet is about filling these data gaps by collection of new or analysis of data from other sources, from clinical trials, interventional studies, or observational ad hoc studies, maybe including genomic protein biomarkers or quality of life information. So these are the first objective. The second objective on the next slide. This is about the analysis. So if you please, next slide. Yeah. So we want to build on existing technologies for conducting advanced analytics for the analysis, and we should use the lessons learned from previous IMI initiatives such as the EMIF, the Get Real, and several other similar initiatives, and also experiences from the US such as the Sentinel or the OMOP or the Odyssey projects, as well as advanced analytics from biomarkers. And what are we going to do with the data? Well, we want to assess the risk for relevance for the defined cardiovascular outcomes that we defined under Objective 1. And we want to characterize patient subtypes, for example, by biological drivers, risk factors, comorbidities. So this could be done through stratified analysis, of course, but also through more advanced genomic, proteomic analysis. And this is to identify the most effective treatments for these patient groups. And finally, to monitor and predict disease progression. The third objective is to translate, to use these findings into disease management concepts and guidelines, and to initiate, hopefully, innovative drug development projects. So these are the objectives. On the next slide, we have the expected impact. So the expected impact is better and more effective treatments, and this should be achieved by providing evidence to improve clinical trials and support innovative drug development, making it easier for healthcare professionals and other stakeholders to provide the right treatment to the right patient at the right time. This is easy to say, but this is what we are aiming for. Now I would like to hand over to Maureen, who will continue with the architecture.
Thank you, Gunnar. Could we have the next slide, please? So, as Gunnar has explained in the previous slide, we have quite an ambitious schedule, and therefore how we structure the architecture of the project is, of course, very clear. The overall applicant consortium, when we speak to that, that's the combination of both the consortium and the private and the public partners. We're expected in the end to have a strategy how to translate the relevant projects to put these into healthcare practice. So you as an applicant will also be expected in your application to make suggestions on how to make a strategy. But ultimately, both the public and the private partners will agree on the strategy in the second stage of this project. It is expected once the consortium partner has been chosen that both the public and the private partners will have leading roles in the consortium, and both representatives will be co-leaders and participating in the various work packages of the project. And as I said before, once the public partner has been selected, we will sit down together and create, in the second stage of the project, mainly this summer, a full proposal on how this project will look. Right now, there are many open questions because many of these questions can only be answered once we decide which public partner will join the consortium and which data they will provide. Applicants should include in their proposals both their expertise and their activities that they can plan to conduct for the overall strategy, and also communicate how these will be translated into the project outputs and how this will then ultimately result in changes in healthcare project practice. You'll see the identified work packages on the next page, and we will expect also from you in your application suggestions on the architecture of the project. But once again, ultimately, the final architecture will be decided in both groups in the second stage of the project. Now, on the next slide, the AMIA partners sat down and wrote the text proposal that we hope many of you have had a chance to look at and many of you even read. And we decided that we could break down this work into 7 major work packages. Again, I have to emphasize this was our initial thinking. This could change in the further definition of the work package. Ultimately, it might get more complicated, but hopefully it will even get simplified. We also have to see how realistic our expectations are if we can cover all 3 disease areas with the resources and the partner that will be selected. So we definitely feel the need that we will have a project coordination work package. This will be the team that will be leading the overall work and will deal with many project management aspects. There will be a work package dedicated to the disease understanding and definitions of outcome, because in this type of work, everything is contingent on clear and well thought out definitions. Then a very large group will be busy with mapping, selecting, and curating existing data. Another group, perhaps also overlapping with work package 3, will then work on data collection. And then a very large group will also be looking at how to analyze the data. A separate group most likely will be working on dissemination and communication of the aspects. This, together with a group in the overall IMI work package 2 project that is called the coordinating group. The CSIA group will also help with communication. Also, we will not be totally on our own with the data analysis. There's also an overriding group in the IMI project to work on data analysis, the so-called DDN group. So not only the outcomes for better improvement of cardiovascular diseases with big data, but also the whole big data project will be able to benefit from a number of projects working together on this. And the final work package, ethics, legal aspects, and data privacy, similar to dissemination.
Sorry, Maureen, can I just interrupt you? Can I ask you to just speak a little bit closer to the phone, please? You're breaking up on us slightly.
Certainly. And also ethics, legal aspects, and data privacy will also be an important part of this project because of the limitations that many of the data currently have. We believe that in this public-private partnership, we will be able to tackle some of these aspects that individual partners will not be able to do on their own. Here we will also have support work from the CSA group and the IMI to help work above and beyond just the cardiovascular area. Now I'd like to move to the next slide so you can get a better understanding of what the expectations of you and applications will be for the project. So the first expected contribution will be knowledge and access to key cardiovascular relevant stakeholders. And here we mean by stakeholders, and this is perhaps not a complete list, but we believe from an ACS perspective these are the most important: healthcare providers, patient groups, regulators, payers, healthcare technology assessment bodies, academia, and healthcare policy makers. The applicant consortium is expected to be multidisciplinary and enable effective collaboration between these key stakeholders and have the ability to engage with extended audiences. The applicant consortium is also expected to have project management experience, such as project tracking and reporting, meeting, internal communication, and budget management. The applicant consortium is also expected to develop outreach and communication strategies for stakeholders and the public at large. Now, for all of these expectations, SBA will also be a contributor, but these will be strengths, many of the things that we will base your application on, your strengths and expertise in these areas. Now, specifically on the next slide, we have also defined specific expertise above and beyond the general ones mentioned on the first page that we think are important for this project. The first one is expertise in defining validated outcome metrics and measurement tools. The second one is expertise in population-based research, including data collection, informatics, programming, and data analysis. The third important area of expertise would be past research with large data sets from diverse databases with relevant, because this will be one of the major pieces of how to integrate and link this information. The fourth area of expertise that we would expect is integration and analysis of so-called onomic characterization data with relevant outcomes information. And here particularly we're looking at proteomic data and seeing how we can combine this with relevant outcome data from clinical trial data. And then finally, we think it's an important part of a consortium to make sure that we have buy-in from health, technological, or payer regulatory bodies. Because once again, with this effort, we believe it's important to get alignment among the key stakeholders so that at the end of a project, we will know what to expect and make sure we're measuring and finding the right outcomes of interest. So on the next slide, you've heard what we expect from you. This is what we believe as FCM members we will contribute to the process. So we believe we'll be an important partner for you because we'll be able to contribute knowledge and expertise in the following areas: epidemiology, health outcomes research, biostatistics, health outcome definitions and measurement tools, proteomics, genomics, and analytical skills. We also have, of course, in our industry, a long history of interfaces with regulatory health authorities,
Hi, Maureen. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's really very difficult to hear what you're saying. I don't know if it's possible for you to either move your microphone closer or maybe use another microphone.
Is this any better now?
Yes, that is better. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, I apologize. Also relationships with payers, healthcare providers, patient groups. And here, one of the overall goals of IMI is also to consider how to engage patient groups with digital solutions. The FBM members will also be expected to contribute with project management expertise, also in the area of drug safety, so pharmacovigilance, benefit risk assessment, pricing, and reimbursement. We also will bring some expertise on data privacy laws and related legal aspects, medical affairs and healthcare communications, such as website management, data and knowledge management, public policy, and governmental affairs. So on the next slide, we'd like to define what we think is in it for you as potential applicants. Those of you who are researchers or small to medium enterprises, we believe one of your key tasks will be to help in the definition of algorithms to assess the risk for relevant cardiovascular outcomes. And on a very high level, we believe this will involve characterizing patient subtypes and biological drivers, such as risk factors and comorbidities of those risks. And then in the second step, help identify the most effective treatment for these patient risk groups. And then ultimately try to understand how best to monitor both disease progression or regression. One of the major outcomes of this work that we believe could be of interest for this group would be writing peer-reviewed journal publications. For patient organizations, we believe it will be important that patients can contribute by helping to define relevant real-world outcomes to ensure that these management concepts will be integrated into reimbursed medications and prevention strategies. And then finally, we believe the third important group that should be involved in this initiative should be regulatory, payer groups, and policymakers to make sure that the evidence that's generated in this process helps in the long run drive healthcare decision making. So we believe the overall alignment of all potential players is well achieved through this project. And now in the second to last slide, I'd just like to reiterate once again what we believe the key deliverables of the whole project will be. So this will be repetition of what we've just said. So once again, we believe it will be important to start off by defining relevant cardiovascular patient outcomes in alignment with relevant stakeholders. Then identify relevant data sources, develop a strategy on how to access these data, which would include the coverage of data privacy and legal aspects. And then thirdly, figure out strategy and then how to combine this information for meaning results. At the same time, we also will identify data gaps and see how much additional data, such as genomics or proteomic characterizations, we can also generate within the realm of this project. And then use advanced analytics to help develop algorithms that will better target treatments to patients who will benefit most from these various interventions. Finally, taking this information, we would like to translate these insights into disease management concepts and guidelines, as well as using them for innovative drug development projects. We believe that it's important that these outcome decisions are endorsed by the key stakeholders of this project, and then ultimately implement a diverse communication program on these results so that the information and the knowledge gained by the project is widely used in the public. And then on the final slide of the presentation, we've laid out for you what we believe are the most important next steps for your understanding. So all of this information is on the IMI website, but we have tried to put together for you some of the major next steps so that you can plan and try to understand what will be expected of you if you are selected. So applicants need to apply to IMI by March 17th. The evaluation of the proposals will then take place from March to April of this year. The final consortium member will be selected in May, and the final proposal will then be made together with the public and private partnerships during this summer, so May to August. That's also important that people realize if you're going to be selected for this consortium, it will be expected that you will have to work this summer on this proposal. The evaluation, so that means the final proposal needs to be submitted and it will be evaluated from September, October, and we hope to gain approval in October of this year. Then from October to December of this year, there will be grant preparation, hopefully with a final signature in December, and we can start the project mid-December of 2016. And with that, we would like to end this our part of the presentation and open up for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to both Gunnar and Maureen. So it is now time for questions and answers. As I said earlier, there are two ways you can do this. One, and probably the simplest one, is to type your question into the question panel and click send. And if you want to ask your question over the phone, you can do that as well. We have got a couple of questions in already. So one, Philippe Danke asked if we can repeat the companies that were responsible for this call. If I'm not mistaken, I found the information it's in the call text. And Gunnar and friends, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's Bayer is the lead, Vifor Pharma, Novartis, Servier, and SomaLogic. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Another question we have also from Philippe Danke. On the data sources, I was missing clinical data, which is neither public nor genomic/clinical study data. Does clinical data play an important role at all?
Yes, of course. And this will be one of the major contributions also from the industry. We have quite a bit of clinical trial data that we also will be contributing to the overall project. So many of this data have not been publicly available to date because it will be at a patient level, and we'll also, of course, want to see what the public partner would bring on clinical trial data as well. So both interventional as well as observational data should be considered for involvement into the overall project, and then we'll have to decide based on the data that is suggested to see what ultimately will be included. But it's our expectation that quite a bit of clinical data will be utilized for the project. Gunnar, did you want to add?
No.
Okay.
Okay. We have a question from Stefan Anker, who asks, who do you consider to be the key stakeholders for approval of the results?
For approval of the results of the project?
I guess so, yes.
So not the proposal?
In your presentation, I can't remember which one you mentioned.
Yes, well, I mean, we listed them a couple different times in the slides. Basically, let me see which slide number that was.
It is for the results of the project. He's just confirmed over in writing.
Yeah. So, So, let me just check. So if you look on slide 10, here we have the relevant stakeholders on the first bullet. So it's healthcare providers, patient groups, regulatory bodies, HTA bodies, academia, and healthcare policymakers.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Christina Dimopoulou, which is maybe more for you, Magda. According to the call, we need a minimum of 3 legal entities from different countries. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So this has to be from the 3 different countries within the EU or associated countries. So some of the countries are not eligible for IMI funding, just to let you know.
Okay, and I might add as well that that's really the legal minimum, and in reality you may well need more, because one important piece of advice is to make sure that all of the your consortium is able to address all of the requirements of the topic text. So that's very much a legal minimum. In practice, you may well need more. We have a question from Aldo Pietro Maggioni. The proposal concerns 3 different clinical conditions. Can the project be limited to 1 or 2 of them, or is it necessary to focus the project on all 3 clinical conditions?
Well, this was discussed extensively in the FBIA member group when we initially started, and at one point the list was even longer, and we also know that ideally you would like to do a lot, but best is you focus so you can achieve more. And our initial hope was that we would have had more partners from FBIA, and in the end, 5 partners from FBIA and perhaps not as much funding putting together. We have discussed whether or not we'll have to maybe reduce the overall scope of the project depending upon the partner that comes into this consortium. There would be several ways to do that. One way might be to reduce the outcomes of interest. But again, this will depend upon the definition of the final scope of the project once the partner is completed.
Okay, but I mean, I think it's maybe worth reiterating that the evaluators, so the proposals will be evaluated by independent experts, and they will really evaluate it against what is in the core text now. So when you're preparing your proposal, I would bear that in mind. We have a question. Maciej Stinsky has raised.
One additional comment also here from the buyer side. There is still an ongoing discussion with additional FPIA companies on joining the project. So there might be more input from additional partners from the industry side as well, but it is not confirmed yet, and that's why we can't say anything specific about it.
Okay. But for now, I mean, the published text is the official version. That's what the evaluators are going to use. And unless we do some kind of official amendment to it or something, I would base your application on that. Ivan Devol asks, can we have a link to the webpage for the application? So if you go to the IMI homepage, www.imi.europa.eu, in the middle you will see a link to both the 7th and 8th calls. If you go to the 7th call one, you will find all the information you need to help you apply, including links to the application tool, which is Sophia. Maciej Stinsky is asking what the minimum number of institutions is to form a consortium. As Magda said a moment ago, it's 3 organizations eligible for funding. Am I correct, Magda?
Yes, that's right. But like Catherine mentioned, this is really never the case, especially if you look at the list of objectives or key deliverables. You need to, first of all, ensure that you have relevant expertise that will be able to contribute to all those objectives. So on average, we see 15, 20 different institutions or organizations, and you have organizations varying from universities, research institutes, you have small, medium enterprises, patient organizations, and so on. So typically, IMI projects are quite ambitious and require quite a number of partners to contribute.
Equally, you want to avoid redundancy. So it's really about finding a balance between making sure you have all the expertise you need, but not duplicating it and creating a consortium that's unnecessarily large, because obviously managing a very big consortium is challenging. So it's a balance, and every topic is different. So read the core text carefully, and when you're forming your consortium, make sure that you don't just meet the minimum legal requirements, but that you have the content and the expertise there. We have a question from Lorenzo Sutton, who asks, regarding an SME with specific ICT expertise, for example, on data mining and analysis, repository management, etc., would a, in quotes, regular partner be preferred, or a subcontractor providing such expertise within a proposal?
So typically, subcontracting is more an unusual activity whenever the capabilities within the consortium are not available. However, this has to be well justified why you have to resort to subcontracting, because the difference between a regular partner and subcontractor is that regular partner, of course, has much higher interest and interaction with the project. Subcontractor is more there to make a profit. Partners are reimbursed on their actual costs, and then subcontractors, they actually charge with a profit margin. So this is the differences. And also, subcontractors are not supposed to perform core activities of the project. So these are all the things you should consider. So it is much more beneficial to have a key partner like this to be a partner and not a subcontractor.
I mean, SMEs are fully eligible for funding, assuming you are based in the EU or one of the countries associated to Horizon 2020. So, you know, you would get, I think it's 100% of the cost reimbursed plus indirect costs at a flat rate of 25%. So yes, we have another question here actually on reimbursement rates, and there we are aligned with Horizon 2020.
Yes.
So you would have that very beneficial rate, plus all the other benefits of being a project partner in terms of really being a full member of the consortium and able to influence it and things. So, but as Magda said, it's something for you to decide. But again, read our rules carefully. I mean, all the information you need to apply, not just the cool text itself, which is obviously very important, but the details for the rules of participation, what is and isn't allowed in terms of subcontracting. It's all on our website, and again, there's also the webinar we'll hold on our rules and procedures next week, and you are more than welcome to sign up for that one. We have a question on how to network with other partners. So we actually have a whole page on this on our website. The best thing you can do is to actually use your own networks. You know who the leaders are in these disease areas and in the area of big data. Get in touch with them. You can also use events. You can use the participants list from this webinar, which we will be circulating. There is a partner search tool on the IMI website. You can use social media such as LinkedIn. There's an IMI LinkedIn group where we sometimes see people posting their interest. But really the most powerful way is to network in person using your personal and professional contacts. That's the most successful way.
One more comment to this. I think in a way it was my reaction to one of the questions about which companies are participating to this topic. Just keep in mind that at this contact with the FPA companies is not allowed, so to speak, due to in order to avoid conflict of interest, to make sure that all the applicants have the same information, that there is fair treatment of everyone. So even if you do try to contact them, you will be forwarded to us. So please don't contact any of the companies. If you have questions, contact the IMI office.
Exactly. So you will be whichever team is successful will be matched up with the FP companies that we've met over the webinar lines there at the second stage. So for now, you do not need FP companies in your consortium. I cannot see any other questions for the moment. As we said earlier, if you have any other questions after this webinar, you can send them to us by email, whether it's about the topic or about our rules. We have another question coming in, apparently, so I will wait for the person to write that. But just to say, this isn't your last chance to ask us questions. We are there to help you. So if anything is unclear, you get in touch with us, because it will, in the end, help you to prepare a better proposal. So it's Philip Danker is asking questions on clinical data again. So this one is for you, Gunnar, and Maureen. So clinical trial data was mentioned. And what about clinical routine data coming from hospitals?
Of course, you know, I mean, medical records is a big part of the U.S. initiatives on combining big outcomes, and that will be, of course, interesting to see what people will be bringing into the consortium. So that will depend very much on what kind of medical records are available, or if people are coming in with existing registries.
Clinical data are present in many of the public databases, and or in ad hoc studies, and these data are, of course, very important and welcome to the project.
Okay. I think that's it now for questions. So on that note, I'm going to thank all of you very much for attending the webinar. Apologies for the difficulties we had with the sound. Thank you to Magda here for stepping in and giving the presentation and helping out on some of the rules and procedures. And last but by no means least, thank you to Gunnar and Maureen for giving the presentation on the topic. So good luck to all of you for your proposals, and we hope to be in touch with you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.